Seattle police are updating their procedures in response to the crisis of missing and murdered indigenous people in Washington state.
The changes come after the Seattle City Council passed a 2019 initiative to improve data collection in cases which involve indigenous victims. Facing Race reporter PJ Randawa joining us live to explain why advocates say racial misclassification hid the full scope of this crisis. PJ?
Well, a 2018 study says that Seattle has the highest number of missing and murdered indigenous people of the 71 cities surveyed. But now advocates say Seattle is leading the nation, one of the first cities to address this crisis by changing the way that we report and respond to these cases.
There were certain things that I was very concerned about.
Thursday, the Seattle City Council received an update on a 5-year project to improve racial misclassifications in the Seattle Police Department's data reporting. City leaders say the project is critical to expose the full scope of the crisis of missing and murdered indigenous people in our area. A 2018 study by the Urban Indian Health Institute found that of the 506 cases of missing and murdered indigenous women reported nationwide, 153 of them were not entered into a law enforcement database at all. Researchers also point out roughly 71% of the U.S. Native population live in urban areas like Seattle, so communication between tribes and municipal police in these cases is vital.
Happy to be here to give a brief update on some of the work that we have been doing.
In response, SPD recently hired an MMIWP data analyst, and the department is in the process of reviewing existing gaps in their reporting processes. Advocates say it's critical work that will give voice to the families of those missing and murdered.
Data inevitably helps us, I hate to say it this way, but really prove our stories, because that's what Western systems are dependent upon. And once those stories have been proven, then resources are allocated and a response is allocated and prioritization is allocated, and inevitably we get what we need to have real solutions put in place. Do I like dealing with that system? No. I wish our stories were enough. I wish our tears were enough.
Some of the recommendations made to SPD include having first responders ask victims and their families to self-identify their race and tribal affiliations. Now, the eventual goal of all of this is to have a process in place for collecting this data that can be replicated in other cities around the country. In Seattle, for Facing Race, I'm PJ Randawa.